Hello everybody, my name is Denzel and welcome to my first coding tutorial. In this coding tutorial we'll talk about the basics of the coding language called Python. Now, as many of you might know by now, Python is a pretty popular programming language since it appears on most Instagram posts, a lot of job offers specify Python, etc. And the reason is, well, it has very good access to libraries. What's a library? You will find out later. It's very easy to type. It's basically English. And again, it's very easy to type. And for that reason alone, it's very easy to learn. So let's get started. I'm using Arch Linux on a Unix-based machine. So my way on Arch at least is to type sudo pacman -s python 3. That's for Arch. For other Linux based like Debian or Ubuntu, or I think Mint is also Debian based, I'm not very sure. Anyway, on those the command is sudo apt-get install python 3, sorry. Okay, but I have another suggestion. I have a suggestion to make. When you are installing Python, also install the TK package, because that will allow you to use the idle tool. The idle tool is a live development system kind of thing. I'll show it soon. This is for Unix based, but as most people, they use Firefox. They use Windows. They are using Windows-based machines, and for that, we are going to see anything. Go to Google and search for Python, and to the first link. And as you can see here, there is Python for Windows and also macOS. And perhaps if you have Ace, IBM for phones, apparently. Anyway, let's get to work. Like I said, if you are installing the TK package as well, you'll have access to the idle tool. This is the idle tool. It's basically the way we are coding at the beginning. We are not making any files, we are not gonna make modules or anything that complicated for now. All we need to do is here, in this little box of happiness. So this is basically, if any of you work with the terminal or the command prompt in Windows. It's basically that, but for Python. It's the Python shell, you could call it. Okay, so what can we do? We can do basic math, more complex math with floating points, a lot more. The very thing we need to learn is, well, how do we put stuff on screen? As you can see here, I just typed 21 plus 2, they gave me 23. 3.2 plus 12, they give me 50.2. But if I write my name, let's say Daniel, name Daniel is not defined. What does that mean? Well, that means that I'm trying to access a memory, an object, some data that does not exist. In programming languages and in computers in general, data is stored under names or addresses. But mostly names, because it's easy for a human to code with names rather than addresses. Anyway, back to the point. I have not made this address, basically. I have a long street, and in each house there lives somebody. In house number 1 is John, in house number 2 is Daniel, in house number 3 is Adrian, etc. So we need to say who lives in which house. Let's say in house number 1 we have John. And again, name error. Name John is not defined. Why? Because in the way I'm doing this, it basically means, and basically this means that I'm referring a house to another house. Like, yeah, John lived in house 1, but he also lives in house John. If you get what I mean. So, how do we define names, or how do we make houses to hold people? Well, that's fairly easy. We just use quotes for words. House 1 lives John, and if we refer to it, we get John. But yeah, how you have to do the same with numbers? Nope. If we say something like age of John equals, like, let's say 40, we do not need to put air quotes here, because there will be a string, there will be a word. We do not want the word 40. We want the number itself. And if I say age of John, I get the number. Now let's try and say age of John equals 40. Age of John. Here's the difference. These two quotes. This basically means that it's taken as a word rather than a number on its own. And that's not what we want. Because if we have something like, let's say, age of John plus 12, can only concrete a string, not into string. What is that? We'll talk about that later. But the idea is, if we are storing numbers in a variable, we cannot make math with it. Okay, fair enough. But what can we do with numbers that are in variables? Well, let's see. Age of Daniel. I'm currently 18. And let's see. Age of Daniel. Let's see how old I'll be in like 5 years. Plus 5. I'll be 23. We can do math. We can do arithmetics with it. We can do a lot of things with variables because they hold data. And with data we can manipulate it in a lot of ways. Adding to it, subtracting from it, multiplying, etc. Okay, but all of this data, I don't want it to appear on screen like this, only when I have to say age of something or that. Not a problem. We can basically do this. Print, and we can say age of Daniel. Yeah, it does the same thing, but here's the difference. If we are printing, it will appear in the console. If not, no. Because here, yeah, it appears if we just write the name of the variable. Age of Daniel. It just appears. It just does. But in an actual code, we will need to print age of Daniel. We will need to use the word print for it to take action. Because if we just say age of Daniel, like this, if you say the variable name, it will not take action. Because here's how this coding works. We have actions and we have verbs and we have pronouns or nouns, how you want to call them. I'm not getting into that. We have verbs and we have nouns. This tells us what to do. That's the computer more precisely what to do. It says, hey computer, print. The computer asks, okay, but what? What do I need to print? It prints this, the thing in the parentheses. Okay, print age of Daniel. Sure thing. Here we go. And if you just say, hey computer, what? Age of Daniel. It just doesn't know what that means. It doesn't know what to do. You just tell him age of Daniel. That means nothing for him. And yeah, this is the basic of variables. We define them. Age equals 12. Print age. Oh, sorry. And again, it's case sensitive. Like age is not the same thing with age. So we can have variables like age, that's 13. We can have age, that's 14. Oh, yeah, 14. If we print age, we get 12. Print age, we get 13. And if we print age, we get 14. So yeah, case sensitivity is applicable here. And this is the basics of variables. There are a lot more type of variables, but these two are the basic ones. String and number or integer. There's also in the number family there is a floating point number. What does that mean? It's just a real number. So let's say number x or number 1 more easily is equal to what? 13.24, and number 2 is equal to, let's say, 12.76, something like that. If we print if you say sum of 1 and 2, we can name variables however we like. We do not have constraints. Well, we do have some constraints, but not a lot. Like, it cannot start with a number, it cannot contain spaces or points or any symbol, despite this and this. These are the two symbols you can use, like, yeah. Anyway, number 3 basically is equal to number 1 plus number 2. And if you say print number 3, 26, because if we take 13.24 plus 12.76, you get 26. And yeah, this is the basics of Python with variables. We can also do arithmetic with it, which is like normal math. Like we can number 1 times number 2. But again, as I said, you cannot have spaces. Number 2. We get that. We can divide. We get that, etc. We can do basically anything. And I don't know if this is the way I usually just write it directly, like number 1 was either, I think it's this, to square it, yeah, this is the way you square a number. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and the power. We also have modular, but I will explain another time what that does. So I hope you learned something today, and if you like, please drop a like button. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and share with friends. Denzel out. See ya.